Hey guys, what's up? Darklaw here, and today I'm going to be showing you my Game Boy collection. Now, what I mean by Game Boy is all versions of the Game Boy: Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, all that stuff. I will show all of them in this video, considering that they all play on a Game Boy Advance SP. So, as such, I am combining all these games together. And there's quite a bunch of them. This is this little jumble mess here. Over 30 games for the system. I think about 36, not entirely sure, but I'll find out at the end of this video. So, here we go. The first game I have is original Game Boy game, which is Bart Simpson's Escape from Camp Deadly. This game is very, very bad. Like, probably the worst game I have on this system. I mean, the graphics are very piss poor, the gameplay is incredibly sluggish, and it is just not fun. Not to mention the music just wears thin after a while. Not a very good game. Wouldn't recommend it. Pac Man Special Color Edition. This is a Game Boy Color game. It's Pac Man. There's really nothing much to say about it. I mean, what can you say about Pac Man that hasn't already been said? I mean, really. Although, this one does include Pac Attack as well, which is pretty sweet. I like that quite a lot. Quest for Camelot. This is based off the movie from 1998 by Warner Brothers. I actually thought the movie was okay. A lot of people didn't really like it, but I thought it was alright for what it was. Although the game, on the other hand, is a much different story. This game is pretty bad. It's a very lackluster Zelda clone that just feels completely, it could have been a great game, but unfortunately all that potential is wasted by lackluster combat and incredibly boring, dull exploration. It's just not a fun game. Battletoads and Double Dragon. No, this is not a compilation. This is actually a crossover game where you get to play as not only the Battletoads, Rash, Pimple, and Zitz, but you also get to play as Billy and Jimmy from Double Dragon, which is pretty sweet. And the game itself is actually not half bad. I like it quite a bit. I would rather prefer the Battletoads arcade game and Double Dragon, but this is still a really solid game. Mario Golf. I'm not really into sports games. I think they're really boring for the most part. In fact, I'd rather play sports in real life than in a video game. But this is one of the few sports games I actually do enjoy, although I prefer the N64 version a lot more. But this is still a pretty decent game. It actually has some RPG elements, which is kind of neat. Pokemon FireRed version. Yes, I know I'm going out of order with Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance and regular Game Boy stuff, but just bear with me. Yeah, Pokemon FireRed version. I actually really enjoyed this game a lot. This was the first Pokemon I ever beat, and also the first one I got a level 100 Pokemon in. I love this game to absolute death. I've wasted countless hours on this, and sadly my old copy is gone, because I let someone borrow it and just never got it back. So basically they just stole it from me, so I got a new copy from my cousin instead. And still love it. Very good game. Played this all the damn time. Tomb Raider Legends. This is not a very good handheld conversion. The PS2, PSP versions are, in my opinion, a lot better. Then again, console versions are usually going to be better most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. But this is one of those cases where the console version is a lot better. Tomb Raider Legend on consoles is really fun, but this version is not so much. Personally, I find this version to be incredibly frustrating because due to it being a side-scroller, the puzzles are a lot more frustrating to figure out. Not to mention the game is incredibly boring, lackluster, it's just not fun. Mario Kart Super Circuit. This is a little bit of a different Mario Kart game compared to the previous entries before it. But it's still fun. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's just that I don't find this game to be the best in the series, but it's a solid game for what it is. Ms. Pac Man Maze Madness. This game is actually not too bad. The console versions are obviously better, but this is a fairly solid conversion from console to handheld. It plays pretty close to the console versions, just scaled down a bit. Donkey Kong Country. This is actually a pretty nice game. In fact, it actually is very similar to the Super Nintendo version. Obviously, there had been a lot of downgrades to make this work, but this is still a really solid port. I played this one quite a bunch, and I got pretty far into it, but then my data got corrupted. Now I don't even know what to do with it anymore, but still, very solid game. Had a lot of fun with it. Feels very close to the Super Nintendo version, and it plays just as well. I would rather be playing the Super Nintendo version, but the Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Country is still very solid indeed. Tetris. It's Tetris. What else can you say about it? It's a simple game. A simple puzzle game where you have blocks falling down and trying to, like, match in a single row. It's just mindless fun. I enjoy it. It's a good game. There's nothing more to say about it. It's just a simple game. Although there is one interesting thing to note, I will say this. This game, there was actually a man who took his Game Boy with him when he was in the army, and while he was being deployed, there was a huge bomb that he was caught in an explosion that really charred his Game Boy to hell and back. Yet the damn thing actually still works, and it's being hung in a museum by now, which it's actually kind of interesting. It just goes to show how hardy that brick is. It's so cool. And Tetris was the game in there, so you can see Tetris being played on that particular Game Boy. So that's kind of neat. Super RC Pro-Am. This game is okay. It's not as good as RC Pro-Am on the NES, but it's not a bad game. It's a fairly decent conversion. Hot Wheels Velocity X and World Race. Velocity X is an isometric racer, and World Race is a third-person racer. But Velocity X, due to the isometric controls, I had a hard time playing this game. It's really hard for me to get into. But World Race, on the other hand, was a lot easier for me to get into because it had a more traditional style with the Mode 7 graphics and whatnot. And I had fun with it. Yeah, I still do enjoy Hot Wheels from time to time. Not the shows. The shows aren't very good. But the cars, they're fun to collect. And some of the games are not too bad, actually. The Lion King, based off the movie, which is amazing. This version is nowhere near as good as the Super Nintendo or Genesis versions. This one is just a very mediocre port. The biggest problem I have with this game is the controls. They're a little unresponsive at times, because sometimes you're trying to, like, make a jump and it doesn't always register. And you try to make a long jump from one platform to another, and sometimes you just fall off, or your jump just cuts short, and it's really annoying. Not to mention, the music kind of wears thin on you after a while, and it's not that fun. It's not an awful version, but it could have been a lot better. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Eternal Duelist Soul. I actually learned how to play the card game because of this game, and I actually had a lot of fun with it. It's a pretty solid game. The audio quality is not that great, but I had a lot of enjoyment out of it. Sadly, though, I don't play the card game as much as I used to, because the card game has gone insanely complicated to the point where it just isn't fun anymore. So now I just only play casually. I mean, I've always played casually, but I don't have a reason to go to the tournaments anymore, because these freaking tournaments just use these overblown, these cars that have these overblown instructions on how to use them. They're just, it makes things really difficult, and I'm not a fan of it. I just prefer the card game when it was much simpler. Spyro Season of Ice. This game is a lot of fun. It reminds me a lot of the old Spyro games on the PlayStation, which I absolutely love to death, and I'm really excited for the Reignited trilogy to come out on the PS4. And funny thing is, the game is actually, the Reignited trilogy is actually coming out just a day prior to my birthday. So I'm hoping to get that as a birthday gift. I don't really know what I'm gonna do, but I'm getting that game. I'm gonna be getting that game because I friggin' love Spyro. Always been a fan since I first played Spyro the Dragon on the PlayStation. And I am just, man, to see these games restored or fully restored in HD and with new controls and tighter mechanics, it's gonna be a blast. I can tell. I am just pumped. My excitement is through the roof right now. So yeah, I will get the Reignited trilogy once it comes out. And if not once it comes out, maybe a little bit after, because, I mean, I feel like it was fate. Because Spyro was one of the games that got me into being a gamer in the first place, and because of that, I owe my gaming expertise to Spyro and Mario, and a little bit of Sonic here and there. But yeah, Spyro Season of Ice, it's a lot of fun, and it's very similar to the PS1 games, just with an isometric perspective, but it actually works there, as opposed to a racing game. Road Rash Jailbreak. This game is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's also on the PlayStation as well, but I haven't played that version. But this version is really solid. I had a lot of enjoyment playing this one. Reminds me a lot of the Road Rash games on the Genesis, but with more refined combat. It's just an overall good time. I enjoy it. Tekken Advance. Another series that I absolutely adore. Tekken is actually my favorite fighting game franchise, and I have just about all the Tekken games except for Tekken 1. I also don't have Tekken Tag Tournament 2 or Tekken 7. And I don't have I don't have Tekken 3D on the 3DS yet. Well, anyways, I don't have any. I just only have a couple of Tekken games missing from my library, but other than that, I've got most of them. So yeah, and Tekken Advance is one of those in my collection. This is actually a really solid conversion of the Tekken series. This is a lot like this kind of plays like Tekken 3 in many ways, just a bit watered down. It's like a mix between Tag and Tekken 3, and it's a very good game. I enjoy this one quite a lot. Obviously not as good as the console games, but for a Tekken experience on the Game Boy Advance, it's pretty solid. I just wish I need to get more fighting games on the system, because Tekken Advance is the only fighting game I have on it, and I'm a huge fighting game freak, so I need to get more fighting games for it. Because I know there's a lot of good ones, like the King of Fighters EX2, and Gundam Wing and Gundam Seed Battle Assault. That was really fun. F-Zero Maximum Velocity. I prefer the other game, which is F-Zero GP Legend, but this is still a solid game. It does harken back to the days of the old F-Zero on the Super Nintendo, which I loved. And, yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. It's really fun. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. I love this game. This is such a fun and hilarious RPG with Mario and Luigi, where instead of Princess Peach herself being kidnapped, her voice has been stolen by the evil Queen Cackletta, who... It's a really crazy story. I mean, stealing voices, yeah, stuff like that's been used in The Little Mermaid, but like in a plot device like this, that's just hilarious shit, and the whole game is just incredibly hilarious. You gotta play this game to see for yourself, because Really, to describe its humor is like describing, To describe its humor is like trying to describe, freaking anime logic. Donkey Kong Land 2. A decent remix of the, Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Super Nintendo. Nowhere near, not as good as Donkey Kong Country 2, but I still found a lot of enjoyment out of it. Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. Both of which are great games. They're very much the same for the most part, although the difference between them is you can get Pokemon in Red that you can't get in Blue, and vice versa. Needless to say, they're still both very solid games, and I wholeheartedly enjoy them, even if these games have quite dated a bit, and I would prefer to play the remakes now, but still, they're still fun games, and I do get back to them every once in a while. Yoshi's Cookie. It's an okay puzzle game, nothing more to say. Toy Story 2. This is not very good. This is a very lackluster, platformer. Yes, I know, I'm saying this a lot, but the console versions are better, for sure. This game just feels very unfinished in places, not to mention the controls are messy. They're very messy, because the jump button is the same as the attack button, and that is really confusing. It makes gameplay unnecessarily difficult and tedious to the point where it just makes no damn sense. I wasn't a fan of it. Not to mention the music is just bad. It's really bad. The soundtrack just gets on your ears after a while. Kirby's Pinball Land. This is a really fun game to play, actually. Obviously, I still prefer the main Kirby games, but this is a really good spin-off. I enjoyed it quite a lot more than I expected to. Definitely worth checking out. Blades of Steel. Another sports game. Like I said before, I'm not a fan of sports games for the most part, but this is one of the few sports games I actually do like. It's a very decent hockey game with simple controls that don't overcomplicate things, and just overall fun gameplay. Also, it does have some pretty impressive graphical effects for a Game Boy game, so that's kind of neat. Dynasty Warriors Advance. Obviously, the bigger games are better, but it's not a bad game. I actually had some fun with it. It's a fairly decent conversion of the hack and slash games, although it's done in a more tactical style than the previous entries, and it's not as combat heavy. It still does have the hack and slash segments. They've just been stripped down is all. Still, it's a fun game, and I got it for really cheap, so that was nice. Legend of Zelda Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and Four Swords. I love A Link to the Past. It is such an amazing game, and I used to have it on the Super Nintendo years ago, but unfortunately, I had to get rid of my old Super Nintendo collection because I had to move, and I was so upset that I did that, because I had a lot of really valuable games for it. But, I am slowly getting my collection back, though. Anyways, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is just a really damn good game, and I had a lot of enjoyment playing it. And it's still just as memorable as it once was when I first played it. The Game Boy Advance version is a very solid recreation, a very solid port of the original game. There are a few differences here and there, but it remains relatively faithful. So, yeah, props. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. This is my least favorite game in the series for many reasons. For one, the plot feels like nothing more than a retread of the first game, which I wasn't a fan of. I felt like everything was just completely recycled, and it just feels like I was playing the same damn game but with a different gameplay style. Also, the card combat system, not a fan of it. I feel it is too restrictive, and it can easily break the game, like robbing it of its challenge, which is sad, to say the least. I would much rather play KH1 and 2 any day. They are really awesome games, and Chain of Memories isn't bad by any means, but it's not great. Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. This is definitely one of the best Game Boy Color games I have ever played. I absolutely love this game. There's loads of bonus content in there, and it even not only does it include a remake of the original game, but it also includes lost levels, which is kind of cool, despite how frustrating that game is. Game Watch Gallery 2. Despite what it shows on the cover, there's actually 6 games, not 5. Or does it just show 4 on here? I don't freaking... No, it shows 5. Anyways, this game I actually had a lot of enjoyment out of, but then my freaking game stopped working, and I can't play it anymore, so that kind of blows. Donkey Kong. This predates the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. It starts off in a familiar territory at first, but eventually it starts becoming more elaborate, more puzzle-heavy. And, yeah, this is actually a really fun game. Definitely one of my favorite games on the original Game Boy. It's challenging, it's fun, it's a very smart game. Like, there's a lot of different puzzles you gotta do. It relies very heavily on puzzles, but the puzzles are so well constructed, like, they make you think, and it's neat. It's really neat. It's quite impressive for a Game Boy, for an original Game Boy game. At least I think so. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Not a very good game at all. Definitely one of the worst Harry Potter games I've played. Very lackluster. The graphics are nice, but the game feels very frustrating to play. It's boring as hell. There just isn't much interesting about it. It's a very uninteresting game. Just play the PS2 version. It's a lot better. And last but simply not least, Pokemon Sapphire version. I love this game. I love this. I love Emerald. Generation 3 was, in my opinion, one of the best. I love Generation 3 a lot. I had a lot of fun playing it, spent a lot of hours playing Sapphire and Emerald. I didn't play Ruby. But, just great games. So much fun to play, and with a lot of different new mechanics added in and all that stuff. It's just so good. I really enjoy it. Alright, that is my Game Boy collection. A total of 36 games in all, and, yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good collection. Although I cannot fit this into my carrying case anymore because, well, obviously I have too many games, so that's going to be impossible to fit them all, but regardless, great stuff. Some bad ones, but most of it's pretty solid. Anyways, that's my Game Boy collection video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.